Dear sisters and brothers, welcome to the 13th broadcast of the Time Chronicles. Actually, this was a broadcast already aired in Turkish on April 4th, and now the English is also requested, so I'm preparing it this time in English. This was a portal day, it was a gate opening day, just like the 11/11, 12/12. So it's the 4/4, April 4th. The number 4 is about completion, and such portal days are perfect for alignment of the energy centers. It's increasing the level of collective consciousness, and really different energies are downloaded on the Earth's magnetic field from various dimensions. And planting some seeds into the collective human consciousness is easier on those days because everybody pays attention to those gate numbers. So it's concentrated awareness, and not only awareness, it's a little bit more than this because it was repeated throughout many years and by various channels. So, for advanced consciousness beings who can really pull these special energies every day, such portal days are just like every day else. So, it's not much different for them. However, the transition on such portal days gets accelerated, and we already know this. For instance, more deaths are taking place and more births are taking place on such dates. And you may figure out that well-known persons, famous celebrity persons, or people who created a mind share of the humanity in common, they pass to the other world on such dates. And it's usually 3 persons you can come across according to your own magnetic field. According to the law of time calendar, this is a day when a new month of the law of time calendar is starting. It's called the planetary month, let's say. The law of time, as you know, has 13 months, and each month has 28 days. And today is called the Yellow Galactic Warrior, the April 4th I'm talking about. We are living in the year called the Yellow Electric Seed. I already discussed about this, as you know, when I defined the system of the law of time calendar. And now the planetary month is starting. Maybe it's time to talk about some knowledge unknown to our planet, which needs to open up further and needs to be discussed by many more people. A knowledge is useless if you do not search for it yourselves, research it, and if you don't think about it and really generate chains of thought, as we know, because it's chains of knowledge. Then it comes to the chain of consciousness. By doing that, we dive from the chain of thoughts into chain of consciousness through knowledge and through effectuation of the knowledge, through usage of the knowledge. And then we end up graduating from the ocean of thoughts into the ocean of consciousness, as you know. So, in this broadcast, I'd like to talk about some profound knowledge, as I said, and you won't come across with this knowledge on the earthly literature. In the knowledge book, which is the source of such knowledge mainly, there's a description regarding the double seed system. And this is what I want to discuss today, the double seed system. For those who has the knowledge book, it is the 32nd fascicule, and the message source is the Central Solar Union. And as you know, the signatures of the messages in the knowledge book are important because it highlights the tone of the message as well. It doesn't only states the message, but it highlights the tonality. For instance, if the same sentence would have been told by your mother to you or by your father to you, the tone of the sentence would change, right? So it's not only the meaning, but the tone behind it. This is what I mean here. If this message, for instance, would come from Cosmos Federal Assembly, we could have thought the message would have a stricter tone, but the Central Solar Union is mostly related to the consciousness and how to increase, how to improve the level of consciousness, how to generate more consciousness coordinates. So the double seed system is about consciousnesses. It's actually about two worlds. One is at the third dimension and the other is at the fourth dimension. And the two worlds are separated gradually from each other. Actually, we now have another double seed system since 2012. This is the fifth dimension now. Think about this as a hologram copies of the third dimension world. What differs is the level of consciousness. It's hard to imagine, I know, different worlds living within each other. It's not easy to imagine, but try to do your best. And there are beings who live in both worlds. There are beings who live in only one of the worlds. Those who live in both worlds are like the missionaries of the transition. They are aware of both dimensional aspects, and they can keep their consciousness at both levels. They can be earthly, they can be universal at the same time. They can adjust to the circumstances, adaptability, acceptance, sharing, love, acknowledgement. These are all aspects of such beings who live in both worlds. And they are working to help other beings to be prepared and to be transitioned to this new fifth dimension world. In November 1981, this process of building a parallel world of the third dimension was created, and the copy world was the fourth dimension. And it is like a hologram copy, as I said, of the third dimension. And it's gradually, slowly separating itself as the fourth dimension world. In 1981, the first separation of the fourth dimension out of the third dimension took 6 days. It started on the night of the November 12th. Humans were put into sleep for 6 days. They woke up on the morning of November 19th, but everybody thought that they slept only for a night. And please pay attention that this was following the 11/11 portal date, another date of transition. And those beings who were transitioned to the fourth dimension world started to live there. The walk-in programs, such as real walk-ins, one-to-one walk-ins, or soul braiding, where all souls are attached to the same body. I explained these in my 12th Time Chronicles broadcast. You can listen to more details. And they started to become more frequent during this period. The Earth had a parallel copy, and some humans had two or different beings as walk-ins in them. They had to manage this. While it is true that a soul must be at a certain level of evolutionary development before it's permitted to walk to come as a walk-in, actually those who came during these 1980s were really highly evolved. Since 1982, the solar system entered a photon belt that we know, and our Earth is moving through this photon belt. Imagine a highway where you have to drive continuously, but at some points, the highway is like it's cut, or there are bumps, so you cannot drive. So you have to jump over these bumps or spots. So imagine a giant magnet is making you jump those spots on the highway. This is how such jumps, such transitions happen for our solar system and the Earth in the 1981 transition. Another one was in 2012, then 2013. And yes, we are now proceeding in the sixth dimension hologram copy as of today. And the seventh is on the way to come. The fascicule 15 talks about the transition of 1981. You can read it in the knowledge book. And also in the fascicule 40, there is a knowledge about the magnetic field surrounding the Earth, and that has many functions. This magnetic field has many functions. One is to block the negatives of the humans to reach higher dimensions and to reflect back those negatives to those who produce them. So that's why we have difficult programs on Earth. And also to act like a shield to protect the Earth while making such jumps on the photon belt highway, or to protect the hologram copies of the Earth as well. And also to protect the Earth from the influences of the negative dimensions, so many functions. This magnetic field was proven in 2014 by some scientists in the Colorado University. And this is truly amazing to witness another scientific proof of the knowledge written in the knowledge book in 1990. And it took a couple of decades, right, to prove it. First, the energy of the knowledge is downloaded and enriched, and then the knowledge reveals itself openly. So you cannot open a knowledge without the energy of the knowledge. The number 4, as I said, is about completion. The 4-4 is about completion, transition, and it's the unification of the vertical and the horizontal connections. Imagine like a cross, and it denotes to the point where you are positioned within a coordinate system. The point of intersection of the vertical and horizontal connections define you, and it also arranged the influences coming from the mechanism of influences that you would able to process. If you're not capable of processing these, they won't reach you. You won't come across with those influences. It shows your capabilities, your treasures within the universe, and where you can go. The humanity is already fed with some futuristic highlights, such as the Great Reset of 2030, that would last until 2037. This is projected to be another major transition. But of course, there are smaller transitions that happen all the time throughout the highway, let's say. So this knowledge of the Great Reset is broadcasted mostly by negative channels. Actually, this causes fear. But fear won't help us for the transitions. So we have to let this aside, the fear, and we must work harder to increase the level of collective consciousness of humanity. If you come back 7 years from 2030, we arrive at 2023, which is next year, and this year is 2022, is like a rehearsal for the next year. It is the 100th anniversary of the foundation of the Turkish Republic by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. And it's not only important for Turkey, it's important for the whole world. Because new programs are going to be opened, depending on the level of collective consciousness, the average of this consciousness level. So it's important to raise the consciousness so that we come across with better programs for the earth. When you come back another 7 years, you may recall what you were doing then, where you were in terms of your consciousness level, how far did you come until now. These are your personal transitions, and you can make your transitions, personal transitions, possible for other human brothers and sisters too, through reflections, and I'm going to come to that. In the year 2014, this was the closing date of the mini cyclus, and a very rapid change was taking place for humanity since then. And if we revisit the year 1962, we see that the 1968 generation was there, and new galactic beings started to be born to Earth since 1964. So if you look at the dates and look at the statistical things, you will see what is happening. And major awakenings took place since then. People were more and more aware. And the first comers who came after 1964 are now in their 50s, and they will start to take over the missions of the divine plan from now onwards, because they will be the spiritual guides for the next 30 years for the humanity. According to the law of time, in 1987, a major convergence took place where there was a transition from alpha level of consciousness to beta. The Gulf crisis started in 1990. The love songs of the 1980s turned into techno music. So everything was towards beta, towards soft, towards being more strict, more hard. Federation was more activated. The Cosmos Federal Assembly took particular care of the Earth and the humans. So all of these followed the 1981 transition towards the fourth dimension, as you might see. So please keep a statistical log, a journal for main events, and you will see that nothing is left to coincidence. Nothing is left to chance, and all takes place based on a plan. The year 1999 was the closure of the 19 cycluses according to the Mayan long count calendar. And each cyclus is composed of roughly 26,000 years, and it's about 500,000 years following this. Two mini cycluses took place after this. And the first mini cyclus was between the year 2000 and 2007. The second one was 2008-2014. And the human consciousnesses were continuously measured during these periods, so that new programs could be downloaded. And since 2015, we are experiencing a very special period, just like the extension period of a football match. And this will continue until 2118, the year. This was the year when the humanity was supposed to attain an open system. An open system, I mentioned it in a couple of broadcasts I did, but I'm going to come to this in next broadcasts in more detail. So we were talking about the double seed system, and the double seed system will be more visible towards this time. You will see more clearly what's going on. For instance, some countries are already transferred into this hologram copy world of the fifth dimension. So some countries already existing there. They started to exist there. So each country has its own magnetic field, as you know, and a birth chart they have also, just like an individual. When the magnetic field is saturated, when country's magnetic field is saturated by certain level of coordinates of consciousness, the country graduates to this fifth dimension world. And as a replacement for their third dimension position, a new unevolved country is placed. So the citizens of this third dimension country are certainly less evolved than those who have already transited to the fifth dimension. And these less evolved individuals are subject to a rapid evolution program. And they use or utilize the reflections of the saturated magnetic field of the graduated country. This is very important. I can maybe explain with a simple example. For instance, if someone was sitting at a chair for a very long time, the seat is warm, right? And even if the person leaves the seat, it's still warm. And if a new person comes at that time, sit on the chair, this new person feels the warmth. So this is the kind of the magnetic field that remains on the third dimension world. Although the country or the citizens of this evolved country are already in the fifth dimension. So the magnetic field residuals, the saturated residuals are still there in the third dimension. The purpose of this is to process the evolution of less evolved beings who have acquired the right to be born on the third dimension Earth, based on the divine justice plan. They still keep this third dimension world alive as a home, as a school for these less evolved beings. Otherwise, they will lose their right to exist. It's very important. So the third dimension world is also very valuable. The takeaway of this is, every human being is able to survive only if they increase the level of consciousness. Of course, together with their conscience, of course, together with their capacity to love. And only this way they are able to transition to the world of higher dimensions. Of course, the selection and clustering of all humans still continues, also in the other higher dimensions. So we are very precious beings of the universe. And we have to appreciate our own value. We should not waste this opportunity on Earth. And there is not much time left for the main graduation phase. And after completion of consciousness transitioning to higher dimensions, we are going to acquire the right to live in those worlds of higher dimensions. So we have to think and act accordingly. You may think that we are so few people thinking this way, and whether we could make a difference, just a bunch of people. But there is an equation that comes as an answer to this doubt. A highly evolved being might have a power of reflection that equals 1 billion people of average consciousness level. So the reflection power is the key here. If those who are evolved could reflect more, could work more, and could generate more thoughts and consciousness and, you name it, even if they are few in number, they have the power to make others evolve faster through their reflections. And what is reflecting here is the energy of the knowledge first, and then the knowledge coordinates that will be converted to coordinates of consciousness. So we are going to work harder to achieve it, right? Okay, the picture at this video, at this broadcast, is another AI creation of mine. And please remember to listen to my previous broadcasts of the Time Chronicles on my YouTube channel. And please subscribe if you haven't already. And you can write any questions you have. Please spread the word if you feel responsible for spreading the word. Take care until the next broadcast.